Hey guys, welcome back to episode 5. I can't believe it's been this long already. Alright, so I know last episode you may have be well and truly fed up with adding extra things to our application, but just to make it extra industrial standard, let's go through and change ESLint just a little bit. And this change will make it 100% super industry safe, super very useful for TypeScript to make everything work flawlessly. Because if we have a look, for example, at our moment, this error middleware TS file that we have for our extended error handler, there's actually a couple of things wrong with it, particularly if we want to be TypeScript. Now, it's already TypeScript, and very uh, it's already very safe. It's particularly compared to JavaScript. This file is much better, but there's still quite a few things that we can do. For example, most of the time when we call a function, we want to declare what we return. So at the moment, we are going to return, for example, a response, unless we want to return a response, right? And then if we have a look at it, we can't actually return response because, and this is two problems in one with this one file, a function whose declared type is neither void nor any must return a value. Because we're not returning void, we're not returning anything in this function actually, we should be returning here the response.status out of this function and exit this function safely. Because theoretically, after we return response.status and we're done with the function, we could do more stuff. And we need to explicitly return when we want to exit the function. And that will tell it that it wants a return response. Because if we do something like this, even if we do this, that's valid, right? And then when we call this error handler elsewhere, we're not sure what we're getting back after we call it. And maybe we know because we built our error handler ourselves. But again, we don't want to rely on our memory, and maybe a friend or a teammate doesn't know what this returns, and TypeScript definitely doesn't know what it returns. So there is definitely a couple of ways that this overall application can be improved with better TypeScript rules. And the way to enforce better TypeScript rules is of course, with the linter. So let's go ahead and run our first command, which I have over here, install ESLint config standard with TypeScript, as opposed to the current one that we're using. If I go to our ESLint, it's just ESLint recommended. So let's make it the standard with TypeScript instead, and that'll go ahead and install for us. Boom, boom, boom. And then we want to get rid of this recommended because we don't actually want recommended anymore. We want instead the standard with TypeScript. Cool. And then because we got rid of that, we should get rid of it here. And I do believe that if we run our linting command, so my mistake, there's actually two extra things. Because it's a standard with TypeScript, it actually has to extend of your file. So if you notice, this ESLint file, we've told it about our prettier file, but we haven't yet told it about this tsconfig. And this tsconfig comes, basically, we've had this file for a very long time, and it's telling TypeScript, TypeScript, the basic configurations of TypeScript. And then when we go to the linter, we want to run the standard TypeScript, we've got to tell it not only the prettier rules that we're extending from, but our TypeScript rules that we're declaring from. So when we come down here into our extends, we want to go, here we go, parser options. And at the very start, at the very end, we just want to say that our project file lives in the local directory / tsconfig.json, and all of a sudden it's picking up errors. That's fine, so that's what we're telling it to do. Okay. And now, if we run our linter, 82 problems, 81 errors, 1 warning, 43 errors, 1 potentially fixable with a fix. So let's just have a look at what they all are. And none of this was here before because it was working fine. But now we're doing stricter TypeScript standards using the ESLint that we set up last episode to enforce it. So let's have a look. Unexpected nullable string value in conditional. Please handle the nullish empty cases explicitly. So this rule, if we have a look at it, what we're saying is in line 10, which is this one, this dot error. So if we're having an error, this error could be a string or it could be null. But if the string is an empty string, so if we pass into an error and we go error is an empty string, that's actually going to be slightly different depending on what we use this function for. Because if we were to say we're going to console log, let's say we're going to console log the error, all of a sudden we're expecting an error message to be console logged to us, so we can use it for Typescript. Sorry, we can use it to debug, or maybe we're not even going to console log it, but we're going to run like print to screen for user or something. And instead of an error, maybe it's like a nice little user message or something. And it's cool, it's already a string, but it's an empty string, and that's not exactly what we wanted when we were using it, and we didn't expect it. So it might run in unexpected ways, and that's the thing that Typescript is all about, making sure that nothing will run unexpectedly. So we have to explicitly say what we want to do, or at least explicitly handle the string, or the empty string, the nullable string. And then this one at line 10 is also related to this error, but it's actually using this. So when we use the OR operator, this dot error, string or null, but this dot error, when we use this operator, if we are using this dot error equals undefined, or this error equals empty string, or this error equals false. When we run these sort of scenarios through, this error equals undefined will become the null value. But if this error is declared, it does exist, if it's a false error, well, it will also be undefined, because is this statement true or false? So if it's false, then it must be null. And we wanted it to be false because we declared that it's false. And now all of a sudden it's null. Bear in mind that this is a generic error, not particularly related to this error as I've typed it, because this error is string or null only, but we still shouldn't use the OR operator because of that reason, and that's just the standard behind that rule. So if we were to quickly go in, and I do believe we can do that, and that'll fix at least one of the issues. Alright. That looks like it fixed. So many errors. 43, and inside of HTTP config. It's one of those, where did that error actually go? I can't. I think it did fix it. Let's run our. Let's have a look actually at some of the things that we expect. Here we go. Some of these things are just literally very, very pedantic. I expect a space or tab after the slash, so expect something like that. And for that, I think that's going to be what our 43 errors can just be fixed. So we're going to run our fix command. And oh, there we go. All of a sudden, there's a space everywhere. And we went down to 36 problems. 36 problems down from 80. That's much better. Cool. And then we go here. Do not use line 14, unexpected object value conditional. The condition is always true. Line 14, there's no users. And so it's basically saying that this is irrelevant because there's always a user, because I believe in user model. User model.find must return a user even if there is no user found. So that means that we can get rid of that entirely. And then what else is there? Unexpected. A lot of these would be unexpected if we go have a look. Line 18, which when we ran the file was this file. Unexpected type any of template literal expression. This one's going to be a little bit more trickier. So when we do this error.message, actually I'll just get rid of that again. When we do the error message, when we're catching the error that we're catching could be anything. We are expecting it to be of a normal error type, but we don't know that, and TypeScript doesn't know what this error is, mainly because we don't know about it. But because of that, there could potentially not be an error message. And if there's no error.message, then one, this may break, and two, it will definitely behave in unexpected ways, and three, because of those reasons, that's what we don't want, because we want TypeScript to always behave 100% as expected. So let's just get rid of the easy scenarios and delete that. So we're doing a lot of the error messages, and it's all about this try catch block for that error. So if we just leave that, because I'd rather fix the easier messages first. So here we go again. If line 4, unexpected nullable string. So let's switch this across to our double question marks. Again, that's because we may want to use a false value or something. If you want to, we can go to the documentation. And all I did to get here was I took this and I just put it into Google, and literally the first result will give you a nice little documentation. Or you can do it the way we went through last episode and just sort of look it up and open the link within the VS Code. And it just goes through, because the Nullish coalescer only coalesces, aka only basically does the OR operation or the question mark operation when the original value is null or undefined. It is safer than relying upon OR, which coalesces any falsy value. So it doesn't operate when it's equal to empty string or false or anything like that. So, alright, 34 problems, and hopefully we're down to at least 30 problems. 26 problems, even better. Any. Alright, line 10. Let's get rid of that, and let's get rid of that. Line 10. Line 5. This is what we were talking about before, so this is actually probably a good one to go through, because we told it before that we need to explicitly return, which is this one. This is return type on function. Actually, no. Return type on function. It's this one. Needs to be a response that we're returning. And then when we're returning a response, the response will also throw us an error unless we return here. Okay, and now unexpected nullable value in conditional. Please handle nullish 0, not a number cases explicitly. Line 10. So if error status is equal to null, then we're going to use 500, and we don't want to use 500 because it was a null and it was sort of a weird thing and it will behave unexpectedly. So let's go through and have a look. Also, line 10 is this one and this one. Alright, let's remember error middleware. User service, project service, server, user service, project server, auth middleware. Database. Okay, down to 20 problems. I'm avoiding the any because that would be a massive thing to do. Okay. This one. Line 17. Wait, let's unexpected condition is always true. Okay, if it's always true, then get rid of the condition, that's fine. And we want that instead. And now it's throwing extras. Because it could be nullish. Okay, we'll deal with that in a sec. Missing return type on function, line 5, because we're not saying what this is actually going to do. So it's going, I believe, what are we doing here? If there's no Mongo, then exit, otherwise we connect. And if we do that, then it's fine. Error, we exit. And if we connect, we just return console log and then just exit the function. So it's going to return void and promise. Yeah, so it's returning a promise of void actually. Because we're async awaiting, it's going to return a promise of what it does, and the promise is going to be void. And that was okay. And then if there's no MongoDB, I'm expecting nullable conditions. So line 21, missing return type. We'll do the same thing here first, except we don't have to do the promise of void because we're not async awaiting anything within the function. Alright, so that should be all the easy fixes. Alright, 17 problems. Any. Promises must be awaited. Yep. Use as user type. That's just an annoying problem. Unexpected nullity. Alright, so let's do these two now. Unexpected nullable string. Please handle nullish empty explicitly. Line 6. If there's no MongoDB. So this is just going to be a pain, but it's TypeScript, and the whole point of TypeScript is to be a pain in development and not a pain in production. When if it breaks, it's actually something that users see or experience. Sorry. So if it's an empty string, if it's, and what are we typing out? So originally, if there was no MongoDB, we're going to say is undefined and then exit the function. And now we're going to say if MongoDB is equal to the empty string or null. And this is in dbts. Okay, we're down from 17 to 16. So it looks like that problem solved for us. So let's do the same inside of here. Auth middleware as a model. Okay. Line 17. Right. So instead of doing that, let's use the same thing. If request headers authorization is equal to null, or it's equal to empty string, or the request headers authorization does not start with bearer, and object is possibly undefined, or request headers authorization is equal to undefined, or request headers authorization does not start with bearer. Alright, so now we've explicitly handled the null, empty string, undefined scenarios, and we should be down to 15 problems. Yep, 15 problems. Excellent. Alright, so let's do these issues. So this is saying that it doesn't like the way we're declaring this. So you have to use as user type instead of this dash user type. So when we do this, we're going to get rid of that. So const standardized project is a project type, and now that'll throw a different error at us because sanitized project type needs to have title. So title's going to be an empty string, and we're going to have that. So if I just go backwards real quick and then forwards, and we sort of see the difference. So when we first did it, pardon me, when we first did it, I was saying that this empty object is of the project type, but now we're sort of writing a different way, and as we're writing a different way, we have to go through everything that the project type actually expects and say what it is, because inside the project type, title is a string. It is not sort of undefined, and before, when we were doing this, I was saying like this, just treat this as the object type, but we probably could have called, let's have a look real quick. When we're doing this, we can call sanitize project.title or something, and because when we're initializing this, when we're console logging .title doesn't exist, but we're telling it just to treat it as if it does exist, because we're saying, don't worry, this is of the project type, when the project type does have a title, and it's not optional, it has to have a title. Therefore, this wouldn't throw errors, but it would throw an actual error in production. But TypeScript doesn't think it'll throw an error because you told TypeScript it doesn't, because you told TypeScript wrong. So now we have to put this back in, and we don't need console log. Alright, and we should do the same thing for the user sanitizer. User sanitizer is going to be of user sanitizer, a user type, and it's going to equal this, and then sanitizer user type is missing username, password, etc, etc, etc. So let's do this. Username, email, password, and useradmin false, and hopefully that will like it. Alright, user type. User type is expecting the reset password token, the reset password expires, but they're sort of optional because we don't want to have it unless it actually asks for a reset password. So let's think if we want to do that separately or not. This will still probably be a useful user type, particularly when it does have these values, and when it does have these values, we want to return this explicitly, so when they come in and they ask for a password reset, they won't. I don't want to make it optional because it is valuable for that. So instead, when we go to sanitize the user, let's just do another one instead, and let's call it use sanitize. It makes sort of sense to call it sanitized user type, but I'd rather type it as user first, because that way everything related to the user model starts with user and I can sort of find it faster. And that does not have that. And now we need to tell sanitize user that is actually a sanitize, a user sanitize type, and then we need to update the import, and all of a sudden we're good. Except we're not. Right, so we're returning sanitize user, which is this type, but we're throwing a promise of this type, so we just need to update this as well. And users is a user type. Replace users. Alright, let's replace it with the enter space. So it will format and save, and we'll just do that. It was one of those, it became too long, too wide. Okay, that's fine. And now same thing down here. And we said this one, this one. Cool. So that should take care of 3 errors, so it should hopefully be down to 12 errors. 12 errors, excellent. Alright, promises must be awaited inside of the server. So it's just randomly that we're calling this, and this is a promise. So when we randomly call it, we should await it. We shouldn't just call it and hope for the best. And if we await it, we actually run into different problems. So awaiting it is good because when we call it, we have to async and so do stuff. So we should await the response, because otherwise, why would we call it? But if we await it, then we run into problems saying we shouldn't just randomly top level await expressions only allowed, blah blah blah. We shouldn't randomly just await stuff as a top level. It should be sort of within a function. So we're going to have to go const database equals, it's going to be async function with that promise of void, because we're not actually using it for anything and it's returning nothing. So that's fine. And then it's declared, but its value is never read. And because we never read it, we should export it. Alright. Let's have a look. And if we run the fixer now, down to 11 hopefully. Yeah, 11. Alright, I've put it off as long as possible. Let's deal with this invalid type any. Alright. Line 17, shall we? And it's all the error messages. So at least I'm just going to assume it's all the error messages. Cool. That's alright. We can just do it all in one big scenario. So let's have a look. When we do this, we're going to have to think about how we throw the new errors in all of the try-catch blocks. So error, we're going to explicitly say that we don't know what the error is. Because any is bad, we don't want to use any ever. If it's unknown, if it's unknown, then it may not necessarily have the message type. So instead of this throw the new error, we're going to have to new error. Okay, we're going to have to throw some sort of specialized error handler. So inside of our utils, let's create a new one, and we're going to call it. Actually, we don't need to create a new file. We can just extend this, right? HTTP, yeah, because it's basically the same thing. It's HTTP, except maybe we rename the file later to be like an error handler. Regardless, I kind of want all the logic in one place. So we're going to take in a unknown error, and then we're going to return our classic HTTP exception. And that's not at all what we want. So what my hope is by doing this, we're going to replace all the try-catch blocks all at once. So when we do this, instead of this throw new HTTP exception with the error message, we're going to have to instead call this error handler with the error. Cool. And update import. So inside of this error handler, we're taking in that same unknown. So if we have a look in this, so Let's moving to this, and I'm going to just dump this as a reference. So we were originally catching the error and then throwing new HTTP exception directly up here with the error and the error message, but the error message could be null. So our end result is to first filter through error types. If error message, then basically the same thing, throw the error message. Hopefully that makes sense. So first thing we're going to do is if the error is type of HTTP exception, then instead of throw error, we're going to throw HTTP exception. And that's basically, instead of filtering through the error types, we're making sure we're sort of reversing. So instead of checking if it's true, we're checking if it's not false. So if it is, instead of explicitly going through all the error types and trying to deal with them separately, we're going to make sure that it is a HTTP exception, which again extends off the base error. So if it is an error from React, a proper error, where errors have messages because it's declared here, then just go ahead and use it. And if it's HTTP, right, so I'm calling it error here, so we should call it error there. Cool. Yeah, so if it's an error with an error.message and that isn't invalid, then go ahead and use it, because if we are checking it, then it has to be that. Whereas if we do this error message may be any, which is the same error we had before, but now we're saying it has to be. Alright, hopefully that makes sense. And now if it's not, then I want to, what do I want to do if it's not? I kind of want to just console log the error, and I want to throw new HTTP exception, and instead of this error message doesn't exist, we're going to throw unknown error occurred, and it's going to be a 500 response, so error. Strings must be single quotes, yeah, because it's no longer using actual value, so let's change it. Basically this uses slightly more processing power, so if you can, you should always use single quotes, because otherwise you're just wasting power. But it's like one of those really marginal things, but it's also one of those, why wouldn't you do it? And then we clean that up. So hopefully this made sense as to what it does and why we're doing it and why it belongs in the same file. So if we go back over here, throw error handler, and now we're going to throw error handler, error handler everywhere, in all the try catch. Cool. Also error handlers in this file, try catch, try catch, try catch, try catch, try catch, and I just realized we didn't import that. Okay, perfect. So now we are actually done with all of the hard logic. All of everything is 100% new, fully TypeScript. There is, well, there should be hopefully no possible way that this will ever break. And that's just because we've used our linter that was out last time, and instead of using the standard linter, we're now using the standard with TypeScript. And then we went through and did a whole bunch of things to bring it up to standards. So we're going to do our last little check git. If I go back to ESLint, I'm just going to put that inside of the message, and then we'll git push it. Cool. Alright, as always, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like the videos and it's helpful to you at all. And I promise this will be the last time we sort of go through one of these derez into making it up to proper standards. Or maybe not. Just let me know if you found it valuable and on the comments below. Alright, until next time. Bye.